Hey, my name is Pastor Benji Wham, lead pastor at the Refuge Church in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina, and I'm joined today by my beautiful wife, Patty. You got anything you want to say?
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today.
I'm really excited about having her. This is something that's near and dear to our heart as we talk about relationships and uh, marriage relationships, dating relationships, or just relationships that people have in general. So I believe that this time is going to be impactful to you. So I want to encourage you, share this, let people know about it. We're going to be giving you some good things, and we're just going to be talking. We're just going to be having a conversation, and so please share this and give us your feedback. Send us your questions. Let us know things because at a later date we might be able to answer some of those, and because we want this to be a resource to you. But this is called Missing Pieces, and everybody in life, we all have missing pieces. We all have parts of us that are incomplete, but we're thankful that we serve a God that makes us whole.
That's right.
And so wholeness can be achieved. And so we want to help you along with that. And we're going to share some stories about us. Sometimes it'll be funny, like you may cry a little bit. Uh, we're going to try to be real. You never know. We might argue right here. I hope not, but hey, we might. And that's okay because it's real life. We don't want this to be fake. Um, so anyway, what we want to talk about today are expectations. Expectations. Um, I think everybody on some level has expectations, whether it be going into a relationship, going into a marriage, friendships, starting a job, starting a church. I mean, it could be a number of things, but we have expectations. Um, so, I guess first of all, the question I want to kind of tackle first is it okay to have expectations? Um, Patty, is it okay to have expectations?
Absolutely. I definitely think we should have expectations. I think that's how we set a standard for ourselves and for, that relationship, if it's a family, for your family. So, absolutely, yes.
And I think it's funny. We always kind of joke in our house or with you and I that you have expectations, and
Oh, yeah.
sometimes we laugh because when it's not good is when your expectations aren't met. You expected things to be one way and then it goes a different way. So how do you navigate in those times, or how are you able to work through it? Maybe we could cite an example, like for instance, sometimes we'll have a family day planned and it just doesn't, for whatever reason, sometimes it may not go. It's not that it was bad, it just doesn't
Right.
go the way we planned it. How do you uh, how do you handle that?
I think when the kids are involved, it's a little easier for me because I'm trying to help them cope with their disappointment. Whenever it's more just you and I, or the frustration, it becomes a frustration between us. Um, you helped me realize it, first of all, to recognize that my expectation was here and reality just didn't quite make the mark. I think the thing I do most of the time is I just remind myself of that in the moment, as simple as it sounds. Is it that easy all the time? Absolutely not. But then just taking your typical deep breaths and thinking about it and just trying to refocus and remember what the ultimate goal was. If it's to spend time together, did we do that? Yes. Did it turn out differently? No. Yes, it did. But at the same time, it's still good. We spent time together. We were able to laugh. We were able to enjoy that. Just trying to refocus, maybe.
Very good. So I guess kind of what you're saying is, maybe a self check. Okay,
Right.
are my expectations realistic? Was I expecting too much? Or looking at the outcome, what really took place here, and did it make this situation better? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yes, I think so. I try to find the silver lining.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
look for the silver lining.
Absolutely. Well, I want to share a scripture with you. Joshua was getting ready to lead the Israelites over uh, into Canaan. And Canaan, of course, was the promised land. It was the place that God had promised them many years before. They had been in slavery for hundreds of years to the Egyptians. They had been wandering around in the desert for uh, 40 years, and now the time had finally come for them to go and possess the land that God had for them. Of course, when they found out it was time to go to that place, the land was occupied. There were occupants, and there were battles that were going to have to be won before they could truly possess the land. And Joshua said this. I'm going to be reading Joshua chapter 1, verse 10. He said, Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the camp and command the people, saying, Prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you will cross over this Jordan to go to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And so here they were. Basically, he's saying, we're going to possess the land. We are going to be successful. Keep in mind, they were fighting an enemy that, on natural terms, had much more weaponry. They had, more people, bigger people. The odds were against them, but they knew they had God on their side, and they knew that God had given them the land. So therefore, they knew they knew they would be successful. And I think so many times we forget that. We don't have expectations like we need to, or we lower our expectations because we forget that God is with us, and
That's right.
we don't seek God. Say, Lord, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? So I think anything we enter into, first of all, keep God at the center and allow our expectations to be centered upon Him. Because I think if we allow Him to set the bar or the standard, and I like how you worded that, then it enables us, certainly we know that our expectations are in check. They're not unrealistic. And we will be able to, in time, accomplish what God has said was ours. So,
That's right.
so really good. Um, One thing I kind of want to touch on before, when we were dating, um, when we were dating, you and I both, one thing that we did, that actually I believe we both started doing this around middle school, is we prayed for one another. Didn't know each
Yeah.
other. We didn't meet until we were in our mid-20s. But we started praying for our future spouse in middle school. And there was something really neat that you did that I was actually presented with on our wedding day. Um, Share a little bit about that, because I think this is really neat.
Okay, so I started a journal, a list, if you will, too. I started journaling prayers for my future husband, and then it wasn't very long or lengthy, and so I kept that. And then before we got married, actually before I ever met Benji, I also started a list of characteristics and things I wanted in my future husband. And then beside that, I put would do without, WDW, would do without, beside the things that I would do without. But that way, if I went out on a date and I had a fantastic time, I could always go back and look at that list and say, it doesn't really meet the standard. But also, I mean, even if I did go out on a date and you kind of know. I just felt like I would know by the end of that date if it measured up or not, if that
Wow.
makes sense. But then, so I kept this list and I would add to it and take things off. But anyways, I combined all of this into a journal and presented it as a wedding gift to Benji along with the key to my heart. Laugh about that now, but that is sweet. But I presented that to you, and I think it meant a lot more to you than I
Absolutely.
ever imagined it would.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's a reminder, and over the years, I've gone back and looked at that list. It's a reminder of, not something I need to necessarily, hold over my head, but just more of a reminder of, this is what she sought God after. This is what you believe that the kind of person that you were asking God for, and you believe God gave you that in me.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's just a reminder to me of who I need to be for you. So it's been a big help for me, and I think that's very good to be able to do that, because I think oftentimes where people really fall short is they go into things without expectations. Maybe they have a low sense of self-worth, or they're just desperate to for companionship, or desperate for a relationship, or desperate to have a job, or desperate. And sometimes I'm sometimes you gotta take a job. Please understand. But we're so desperate for things, or we have these voids in our life that we just, whatever comes along, we roll with it, and then get into it, and we're not happy, unfulfilled. And I think the reason why is there are no expectations there.
That's right.
And wherein really truly we do have expectations, but we never sought to realize them, or never stopped and asked, would this help me? Is this something that maybe you've kind of seen with others, or because you've been a pastor's wife. Really, we'll be married 16 years in November, so you've counseled a lot of women, lots of girls. Is this kind of something maybe you see where people kind of enter into things without expectations?
I think so. I think a lot of times folks enter into something hoping, but not with necessarily. I think they can adapt and to the situation or to the person, but you really need to be solid, I feel like, in who you are, know what you want and who you are, and what you're willing to what's the word, compromise on versus not.
Yeah, earlier we were talking about how we both prayed for each other before we knew each other.
Right.
And I think one thing that kind of stemmed out of for both of us is we both came from divorced homes.
Right.
Both parents eventually remarried, but we both came from divorced homes, and I think for both of us, even though a lot of good has coming out, God uses things for good, and I think everyone needs to understand that.
Absolutely.
God uses things for good, and some great things have come out of the remarriages, and all, we've got family members that we would not have had otherwise. So I'm not speaking against it, but I think for both of us, we both made a decision that that's not going to happen for me. Divorce is not an option. We're going to set a different standard, and so that's for both of us. That started at a young age. Speak to that a little bit, because I believe that that's kind of where some of your setting expectations and journaling about it, and I think that's where that kind of started for you, was coming out of facing divorce, because you faced it a little later in life than I did. I think you were in high school or
Right.
a little later, whereas I was about 5 or 6 years old. So
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So that's right. My parents were having trouble when I was in middle school, so no one really knew that, and they actually made a decision. I was in 6th grade, and they made a decision to stay married, and then when I was in high school, I was probably around sophomore year, I think, they actually separated. But during those middle school years is when I would overhear conversations during the bad times, I would be in bed, and I would just overhear conversations and think, is this what love is? Is this what marriage is? Is this what I want? And so at that point, I started formulating what I wanted for myself. And then I was involved in church in a youth group, and our youth leader, I don't know, I can't recall who or when or anything like that, but I do recall a youth leader saying that it's in these years of middle school that you need to determine what you will accept for yourself.
Wow.
And when that was spoken, they even mentioned praying for your spouse. And so it was at that point that I said, you know what? That is great. That's what I need to do. I need to pray for my spouse and determine what's okay for me. And because what I was seeing at home, I knew some things I liked, but some things I really didn't like. And so I needed to determine then what I would allow.
No, and I think that's very strong. Um, you know, just mentioning that, and I think it's just quite a testimony of again of God being faithful,
Absolutely.
God answering those prayers, and that it is okay to have expectations. One of the things I want to talk about are when expectations are not met. Um, I think we had touched on it a little bit earlier. Let's kind of go back to that. I know when I was, I'll just kind of let you share. When we first got married, we did not live together before we were married. Because again, we had expectations that we had. We did not have sex until we were married, and so our first time ever outside of siblings living with our parents. The first time ever living with the opposite sex was after we got married, and so I know for you, it was a challenge. I think it was for both of us, but particularly for you, because again, you had expectations of when you came home, how I should be, what it would be like.
Right.
And I think for me, I mean, I'd been a bachelor. I'd been living on my own for a number of years, and I had my ways of doing things. So I'll just kind of let you share that, and we'll kind of tell on me a little bit.
Well, I think that is so funny because how many times were we told that expectations going into a marriage, don't have unrealistic expectations? How many times do you hear that? Well, I was like, oh, I don't have unrealistic expectations. No way. And I just felt like everything was hunky dory. And so then we got married, and I too had lived on my own for several years, had a roommate, and who was my best friend growing up. I mean, so we got along like sisters and got along really well. So being married was just a shock in a way, because when I would come home from work, I would think like while I'm cooking dinner, you would be taking out the trash because we're working together, right? But no, it would be while I'm cooking dinner, he's playing his video game. And then, I don't know, just little things like that. And when we would talk about it, you would explain to me, well, I'm just trying to escape for just a minute, but like downtime. And I had to realize, I have my ways of escaping or having that downtime. It's not really an escape, I guess, but just having that downtime to shift from one thing to the next. And for me, it was something different. I can't really give a good example, but it might be watching TV for, 15 minutes or whatever, making a phone call. But for you, it was video games. So once I understood that, I think I relaxed a little bit. There's still times though where I'm like, you're not talking to me.
And of course, some of that is the difference between men and women. Women are very relational. They're very verbal. Men aren't. Women. I can't remember the statistics, but women speak something I think around 20,000 words a day, whereas a man's around 7,000 words. And I think a funny thing I've heard is a lot of times women don't need to take men personally when they get home. It's not that there's anything wrong. They're just out of words. They're out. They're done. But I think, I would agree. I mean, I think for both of us, that's something we still Even last night, if we'll just be very transparent, that's still something we work through.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
coming home and one's one way and the other's the other way, and navigating the moods and uh, sometimes it'll be reversed. Like sometimes I would have had a great day and I've got plenty to say and I'm peppy and she's not, and learning to navigate through that. So,
Sure. I think too, even like Saturdays are a great example of that because Saturdays, there's lots of jobs that you take home with you. Pastoring is a job you take home with you. You don't just leave it your 9 to 5, you know? And so a lot of times, like Saturday mornings, what are we going to do today? Well, it might be that we want to go do something fun as a family, but then you say, well, I want to work a little bit first, and I'm trying to figure out, does that mean 30 minutes or does that mean 2 to 3 hours? Like, because if so, that means I can tackle this, and this, so that's another.
and next our next series will be the next topic we'll go into will be communication, but I think it is so important with expectations that expectations are shared, but in
That's good.
a good way,
Right.
and learning to communicate that, because I think oftentimes, I would think oftentimes one of our big things that we've had to overcome is I may have expectations, but I have not communicated it to you.
Right.
And I just expect you to know it.
Right.
And I think we do that with a lot of things
We
in
do.
life. I've done that in places of employment or in the church. Because being a pastor of church, I have people that obviously we have many different people that serve and volunteer, and sometimes I become very frustrated when expectations aren't met. But then a lot of times I have to step back and evaluate. So you know what, I did not do a very good job of relaying what those expectations are.
Right.
And so I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. And something else I would throw out there is an expectation does not mean you have to do it my way. So that does open the door for communication.
Yeah.
An expectation is, this is what I expect, but what are you expecting? And let's work this out and get on a common ground.
Yeah.
So that way we can realistically enjoy our time together, or enjoy whatever, you're applying it to.
No, that's really good. And I think too, so, and I believe we've probably have touched on it to a degree, but when my expectations aren't being met, when I'm not being met, we talked about how I need to go through kind of my own checklist. Okay, am I being unrealistic? Are my expectations biblically centered?
That's good.
How do you navigate that? How do again, kind of just going back to
Sure.
that, how do you handle when your expectations haven't been met?
I think exactly what you just said. And then I have to think too, a lot of times I have to remind myself that the Bible says that the Lord orders our steps. And sometimes it's not going to work out the way we have envisioned or planned or anything else. But if God has ordered my steps, then there's a reason for it. And I may not know this side of eternity what that reason is, but it allows me, when I start thinking along those lines, that then I'm able to just rest and know it's in His hands. I'm in His care. It's going to be fine. It's going to work out. So.
And I think something that our church has heard me say many, many, many times, you can always, I think it's always so important to go back and reflect. I can look back, now at what my life was like a year ago and what my expectations were then, and what was troubling me then and what was bothering me then. But like you said, God's steps were ordered. So sometimes there's things that I'm dealing with or going through that I did not understand in the moment. But now looking back, I can see how the hand of God was on my
That's
life,
good.
how things were maneuvered and shaped and changed. Like, I think one great example of this is just imagine a year from now, let's say July 2021. Because right now, all of us are going through this
Yeah.
pandemic and everything we're experiencing. So a year from now, just being able to look back, I really think in a year we're really going to see the hand of God, perhaps in ways on a level that we've never seen. How God was moving and shaping things and handling things, and so I'm excited for that, and I think that's so important to be able to look back because I believe that I believe you can look back over your life and you can see the fingerprints of God over every situation. So,
Amen. That's good.
well, I think this has been great.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm excited. Hey, we got 3 more of these. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part. Again, we'll coming to you on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. It's called Missing Pieces. Share it on all your social media platforms. All of the information is there at the bottom of the screen. If you would like to give to the Refuge Murrells Inlet, there's instructions there on the bottom on how to do that so you can give to this ministry. And again, we welcome your feedback, prayer request, or if this has touched a nerve. We want to hear about it, okay? Drop us something in the chat line. Send us an email. Our email address is being put there on the bottom of the screen. Let us know because, again, this is for you. We want to help you. So let us know. Help us so we can help you. But, hey, once again, I'm Benji Wham. This was Patty Wham. And this was Missing Pieces. And we'll see you next time.